Yeah, I'm watching the rise, and I wouldn't say I'm shocked, cause I'm hardly surprised. This one's for the ride, this one's for who knew I'd make it, just needed some time. This one's for my wife, could've left 1,000 times just about my side. This one's for the grind, I knew.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to our first live broadcast. My name is Randy Kaye, and I'm the host of the Caught Up podcast. Today we have Coach Jorge Araujo. George is the head coach of the women's Mexican national team and the associate head coach at Cal State Fullerton. Coach Araujo got started coaching travel ball and has many years of experience and relationship building in the Southern California community. George, it's always great to see you, man. Thanks for taking the time to catch up.
You got it, man. Happy to be here. Caught up.
Yeah.
Caught up. I love it. Let's get
caught up. It's funny because I think of that because, like every time I'm going to go to the field or I'm going to go to a game, I'm like, oh, hey, I'll be back in a couple hours, or I'm going to go watch one team play. And then like 5 hours later, my wife's texting me or calling me, and I'm like, yeah, I just got caught up a little bit, so yeah, so that's why I came with it. How are you? How are things with you?
Going good, man. Going good. I had, just finished up our season here. We lost to the Stanford Regional and stuff. So we took a hard loss and went to the championship game with them and came close, but they just got us at the end. But season's over and work never stops, right? So
right.
Getting ready to hit the recruiting trail as well.
Right. No, all good. We're definitely kind of getting into the thick of it as well. And we can talk a little bit more about that. But so I understand you're in Mexico right now.
I am. I'm down in Baja, California here. Had a couple meetings with some people and gave some equipment. I always pick up equipment throughout the season and stuff, and I bring it down here and give it to some of the less fortunate, I guess, down here in Mexico. So, and met with one of the ex-coaches of the team and went over a few little odds and ends and stuff for this coming summer.
Yeah, you know what? I just literally took 3 or 4 garbage bags full of uniforms, and I meant to call you, and I stuck them out in the garage, and my wife was like, hey, I took that stuff to the Goodwill for you. I was like, crap, like anything like that. We'll be collecting some stuff back. I'll make sure I hit you up.
Oh, I'm going to have to talk to you about that. Yeah, you wouldn't, this is something that I guess we take for granted, right? In the States, that we have every girl has 2 or 3 bats, right? Helmets and bags and uniforms, cleats. Well, down here, there's not much of that, right? So they're happy when they get, used batting gloves or use fielding gloves and bats. And that's just not, down here. So they're always real appreciative of that stuff. Yeah. So whenever you come across some of that, or any of your listeners out here, hey, bring it over to you and I'll collect it and I'll bring it down south. And man, I'm telling you, kids will be really appreciative of that stuff.
That's awesome. And so you're down in Mexico right now. You said you had some meetings, and obviously that's around softball. I want to talk to you a little bit about international play and what that's like. What's the difference? Talk to us a little bit about that.
You know what, Randy, there's nothing like international softball. It is incredible. I mean, no doubt about it. We have our college game, right? And that's a high level, right, of play. But there's a couple ingredients that make international softball what it is. And that is, one, you're representing a country, right? Whether it's Japan or the USA or Mexico or Italy, whoever it might be, Puerto Rico. And once you get into that mode of representing a country, you're just not representing a college anymore, right? You're representing people from, millions of people from that particular country. And once you put the jersey on and you hear your national anthem for whatever country it might be, it's just incredible. I mean, it's incredible feeling that goes through your bones and all the way to the, from your feet to the top of your head. It's just really emotional. It's just so much pride involved when you're playing at that end of it because of that, representing your heritage, wherever you might be from.
Yeah,
it's pretty exciting. But at the same time, you have the best athletes, right, that are out there. So the competition level at the international, level is just incredible. I mean, you have the best athletes from Team USA has the best athletes from the United States, obviously, and then Mexico and Japan and Puerto Rico's no joke. You know, you got Canada, right? And these are all the top athletes of their country. And then a lot of the countries like Mexico, we have a lot of athletes that were born in the U.S. but are from Mexican descent, right? Have parents that were born in Mexico or grandparents. But you're talking about the best of the best, and the quickest the game is just so quick and so fast, and it's just amazing. So I enjoy it. You know, I enjoy it. It's a lot of hard work for sure, not only for the coaching staffs, but for the players, right? It's a big, you know, you got to be pretty darn well committed to play at an international level. There's not a lot of funding for a lot of countries. So a lot of the work and the practice and the training is done, you know, individually, right? Because you're no longer at a college or in a college setting. You got, I'm speaking for the Mexican team. You got players that are from Mexico. You got players that might be from California, Arizona. I know we have a couple of your ex-players. You know, so they're from all over the country and several countries sometimes. So for us to get together as a team is difficult. So there's a lot of commitment on their end to train on their own and maintain that level of skill, right? And it's tough to do. But we're excited, man. We have the 2028 Olympics coming up. Unfortunately for the softball fans, there's no softball in the France Olympics here in 24, which is unfortunate. But as soon as August comes around and those games are over in France, the Olympic committees from all different countries will be focusing on the 28. So then the funding is going to be a lot better, and the focus will definitely, you know, as far as Team Mexico, the focus is going to be on qualifying for another Olympics. Obviously, you probably know we were in the 2020 Olympics and had a good run there. But man, we're excited about 2028 in Los Angeles. So we're trying to form the best team that we possibly can.
Yeah. When you talk about going back to your point about playing for your country and wearing the uniform, and that's the first thing that came to my mind. There's got to be a sense of pride. And you said it when you hear the national anthem. I mean, you're talking about, you know, like you said, the best of the best from that country or from that descent. And, you know, you have a lot of teams now that are, you know, called national teams in the travel ball space. But that's actually like a true national team, a true best of the best, and that's pretty cool. Why wasn't there? I don't keep up a lot with a lot of that stuff, but why wasn't there a 24 Olympics? Can you refresh my memory on that?
You know what? It's once you're around a while and you travel to different countries and you know, see how things are run in different countries, and you see what sports they like in certain countries. You know, softball has gotten so big here in the United States and in a lot of Latin American countries, right? It's just really, really popular and has really taken off. Japan's another country like that, China. But for a lot of parts of the world, it's not known. You know, it's not, I mean, it's known in a general basis, like that's a game they play or that's something they might do at a picnic or something. But really, I remember walking around Chile, parts of Chile, and I was there for the Pan American Games. And, you know, people would ask what sport, you know, we were representing, and we tell them softball, and they're like, never heard of it. You know, and I have to describe, well, it's kind of like baseball, but different and all that stuff. But yeah, some countries it's just not as popular as we here in the United States might think it is. Right. Yeah. So when they make these decisions, and, you know, especially in some of the European countries, yeah, it's not that popular, man. And it got voted out. And there's other sports that got in, and I know people always laugh and make jokes about breakdancing, right, being in the France Olympics, and but you know what? I've been to the breakdancing events, and those dudes are pretty, and girls they're pretty athletic. You know, they do some incredible things. So I don't want to knock anybody's sport. Everybody has their you know, the sport they love, and just unfortunately, softball wasn't one in France. But I'll tell you what, it's going to be big here in a few years, right? It's going to be huge. It's going to be, they're still trying to determine what facilities they're going to use here in LA, right? They're trying to determine. I'm hoping they use Cal State Fullerton because it's a great it's a great stadium, right? It's beautiful, and it holds a good amount of people, and it's just a great venue. So I'm hoping that they use our field at Fullerton, but I'm sure the Olympic Committee will decide all that.
For sure. When you look at some of the games in the College World Series right now, and you look at that aerial view of the stadium, I mean, that thing is packed. And I got to imagine that they will have no problem filling up a similar size stadium wherever it may be for those games. So
yes, it's incredible watching those games. Here's another one for you. So we talk about the European countries might not know in the game, but I'll tell you what. There's a new league that started up this year, and maybe a lot of your listeners might have heard, but there was a new Mexican league established, professional softball league established in Mexico this year. First annual. They had 6 teams, and they were backed by Mexican professional baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And they were averaging about 12,000 fans, 15,000 fans per game. It was incredible. Wow. I mean, they had a whole championship. They had their final game, but they were every game was averaging, anywhere from 9 to 15,000 people. At the average was about 11 to 12,000. But man, the fan base in Mexico for softball is incredible. A lot of people don't know about it. They're coming. I know this next year we had a couple of our Fullerton, or one of our Fullerton players play in the league, and she loved it. I just got a call about her, and they want to renew her contract, so the money's going to get better over there. It's pretty exciting. If you guys haven't seen it, look it up. Major League Softball in Mexico, and it's pretty intense, and the fan base is incredible. So I wish our pro league here in the States was kind of like that, right? We're still struggling to get one going and really have a great fan base for our professional league, but I think that's right around the corner.
Why do you think we're having trouble with that?
I think there's a lot of factors, right? Obviously, it's the economics end of it. That's one. My biggest, when I think about it, in my opinion, is that there doesn't seem to be a home base for the teams. Right, the teams seem to always be floating around from city to city. One year they might be in one city, and the year they might be in another. What Mexico did in their concept was pretty awesome. They have a base, so they represent a city out of Mexico, and then it's automatic fan base that they have. Right, they're also backed by Major League Baseball, in Mexico, so that's huge, right? With the marketing and everything that they bring to the table. But yeah, I think it's just a matter of finding a place, being stable, finding a venue. But again, to create those venues and have them, it's expensive, right? You can't just go out and build any stadium. But I think that's a big part of it. I think creating a fan base at a home base, I think that's something that's missing, right? And I think the higher ups in pro softball in the States, they got to come together and figure something out, because there's no doubt that the love of the game is there. You see it, you're watching it right now in the World Series, like you said. So, hopefully they can get that together. It'd be cool.
Yeah. How much influence? Obviously, you said we have players that are going down and playing in Mexico, but how much influence are we having on the game? And then, are you seeing the Mexican leagues? Are you seeing them starting to have an influence on the way we play the game?
Good question. Yeah. About 12 years ago, when I started with the Mexican Federation, okay, one of my goals was definitely, there's a lot of good softball players in Mexico. Okay. So people might not know this, but there's leagues, there's travel ball leagues, just like we have here in the States. So it's a popular game. The thing that the Mexican teams are lacking is pitching and hitting, right? There hasn't been much of pitching development. So now the hitters don't get to see good pitching and hit against good pitching, and vice versa, right? And vice versa. So, they have to see each other. Competitive pitchers have to see competitive hitters, and to be a competitive hitter, you got to see really good pitching. So what we did, and we established over a decade ago, is bring in a lot of our U.S. kids that were born in the U.S. with Mexican descent and have them go play in tournaments in Mexico. So they have a national tournament in Mexico. They have qualifiers, and then they have a national tournament there. So we started putting young kids, 13, 14, 15-year-old kids, we would if they're, let's say, for example, that their family was from Mexico City, their family descent. Okay, where did you originate from? My grandparents are from Mexico City. Okay, we're going to put you on the team. We're going to take you 3 players that have descent out of Mexico City. We're going to take you, and you're going to play for Mexico City. You're going to go play in their league. And that's what we started doing all across the country. We started plugging in players to certain club teams in Mexico. And then what started happening was the Mexican kids started learning, right? Started seeing better pitching. They started seeing better hitters. And so it started developing. Our kids started seeing the infielders, right? The outfielders, the catchers, because they're very highly developed in all Latin American countries, not just in Mexico. And you see that in Major League Baseball, right? The infielders, the infield play, the catchers is just incredible. It is no different for the women's sport in softball in Mexico City. The infielders are just tremendous. So, it was kind of give back and forth, right? We developed a little bit from both sides. But I think the influence that our U.S. players have had in Mexico has been tremendous. Little by little, you start seeing better hitters popping up in Mexico, better pitchers popping up in Mexico. We have a pitcher out of Mexico right now on the women's national team, and we never thought we'd have a kid out of Mexico actually being a pitcher on the women's national team. I mean, our pitching staff is going to be loaded. We have and some of these kids, but we have Lindsay Lopez out of University of Washington, one of our pitchers. Racy Miranda, who pitched for you, on your travel ball club. She's one of our pitchers, right? So we have top level pitchers that are coming in, and so now we have a kid out of Mexico. We're excited for her and we're rooting for her.
Awesome.
Hopefully she can compete.
That's awesome. How about the fields and the facilities and things like that? How does that stack up? Like where's that aligned?
Well, I think if you're talking at the travel ball, kind of scene, right? I think that's why there's so many good middle infielders. The fields aren't as good as you might think that like we have in the States, right? Our fields get dragged, and even your worst fields are probably the best fields out in Mexico. So the infields are a little rough, but man, these infielders get those quick reactions, right? And they start feeling all those bad hops they get, and it doesn't phase them. So, it's a different dirt, right? It's the different texture of the dirt, different grass, the way they maintain the fields is a little bit different. But once players from the States go and play there, it doesn't even phase them either. They get used to it. They're kids, right? So they get used to it and they just adapt. But I remember one of my first games that I went to watch out there. I get there early, and I'm watching, not a semi kind of coaches, umpires and stuff kind of fixing the field. They're all fixing it together, getting ready for a game. And I'm sitting in the dugout and just kind of observing them work on the field. And I just see the umpires go and they drop the bases. They drop first base, they drop second, they drop third. I'm thinking, okay, well, they must harness the bases down somehow, but no, they just leave them there. They just throw them on the ground and that's it. They go, let's go play, so you got movable bases at all times, and rarely do you find a park that has pegs,
right.
Unless you get to the colleges. They have colleges there too, and they give out scholarships. And so a lot of kids get their education paid for just like they do here in the States, but there's universities and it's kind of cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. I know that we had, one of my younger, newer teams, 14U team, has a kid that drives up. And I think I heard it's like a 7 or 8 hour drive in to play on tournaments on certain weekends. I'm not sure if she's still with us, but I know early in the spring when I went out to watch it, she was out there, and I don't speak Spanish, so I was trying to use Google Translate to talk to the parents. So that was interesting. But yeah, I mean, it's we know the game's growing, and like you said, baseball has a huge influence in that part of the world. And so I think it's only fitting that softball will follow. Really quick, before we jump off that topic, you mentioned that there's a lot of players there that are talented. And I was, one of my things was I was like, man, I wonder if there's any kids that I need to give a call for a club. So,
well, I think volleyball, basketball, soccer, they've been doing it for a while now, right? They go down to other countries, whether it's Europe, Italy, or whatever, to look for those type of players, and Soccer goes in, I know at Cal State Fullerton, our team's loaded with kids out of Mexico. It's just time now that's the next step, right? I got my eyes on a couple kids too, that I'm looking at, right? That actually one of them doesn't play for Mexico. She's out of Puerto Rico, but there's a lot of talent, especially in softball, in Latin America for sure. And I think that's the next phase. That's the next level. And here's one thing, I'm just going to say this, but I wish a lot of kids would get to experience this, but softball, right? Softball, the love of the game is the same in Mexico as it is here in the United States or in Japan. And I've been all over, I've been all over the world, to be honest with you, down in South America, and Canada and Asia. So I've seen all the countries. And when the players are between the lines, man, it's beautiful because it's the same. And it's kind of at least I do anyways. I realize, man, it's we're all human beings, right? We're all human beings and we all love the same thing and we all want the same thing for each other. And it's evident in a small little game of softball when I experienced the international play. We're all the same, man. We all want the same thing. We all want to be called safe and we all want the opportunity to bat or pitch or we all want to win and we cry when we lose. It's all the same. The world's, we're just all human beings. And sometimes I wish we'd all, can see that a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
That we all have the same interest, and just like in the States, we all want the same thing, man. We want what's good for our families. We want what's good for our kids. We want what's good for our community. And sometimes I think we lose a little sight of that.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Let's talk a little bit about, how you got into softball, how you, maybe your early travel ball days. I thought I heard, and I don't know if I heard this from you, but did you coach with Lakewood Ladies back in the early 2000s?
Yes.
So I remember it had to be like 2000, maybe 4. We went down to that school. I think it's called Mark Twain. Were you with Freeman, Mike?
I wasn't with Mike, but let me, I don't know. Were you going to say something? Go for it.
No, go ahead. I just had a question because those were some early memories of going to California when my oldest was, like 12 years old. So you got a story for me? Yeah.
I'm always full of stories, right? But, so Mike and, here's kind of the way it started. Well, I got caught up in, the rec ball scene and stuff. I played baseball in college. I played at Cal Poly and, I knew the game a little bit and stuff, but, how I transitioned into softball, obviously like most dads, right? Our daughters played and we got caught up and I had a daughter that played, for the city of Downey All-Stars.
Okay.
And we had a good little run and stuff. And we had my manager on the team, her older daughter who was 10 and under. My daughter was 8 and under. Her daughter had played in 10 and under for Mike Freeman, right? Okay. And the Lakewood Ladies. So Mike Freeman actually started the Lakewood Ladies. It lasted a couple years, but I took it over. Had it for quite a bit of years. But I still remember sitting at Downey at the little Independence Park there. I don't know if you remember that field. That's where Nemesis practiced, and Manny Garcia, who does a really good job over there, runs that. And I
just saw him, by the way. I just
meeting with Susan, my manager, who was friends with Mike's wife.
Okay.
Mike Freeman's wife, and they convinced me to go into travel ball. I didn't want to do it. My daughter had another year, 8 and under, 10, second year 8s or something, but they convinced me to do it. And I jumped on with the Lakewood Ladies, and that was my first experience with travel ball. And we had a good run in rec ball. And I thought, well, yeah, I could take this team to travel ball. We're just going to continue to win like we did in 8 and under, right? I think we won like every tournament in 8 and under. We had some good kids, man. I mean, really good players. But I remember Mike Freeman giving me some advice, and he said, first thing you need to do is you need to get some big kids. Your girls are too little, man. You got to pick up some big poppers, big hitters. And I was like, you know what, man, I think we're good. We got some good athletes, kid that can hit a little bit, and they might not be very big. So anyways, to continue with the story, we play in our first tournament, my first travel ball tournament in 10 and under.
Do you remember where it was at?
Yes, it was at Independence Park.
Okay.
Same place. And it was our first one. A guy by the name of Ed Nadine. You might know Ed.
I know the name.
Yeah, he was with Texas Glory for a long time. I think he's now with Texas Bombers. But real good guy. He was actually a Southern California guy. And he had a team, man. He had some big kids, right? And we go and play him. We play him on Sunday in the quarterfinal game, and they just creamed us. I mean, we couldn't hang with them. They were just hitting bombs all over the place and just crushed us. And I was like, man, I think that Mike Freeman guy, I think he was right. I think I got to go get some bigger players. So sure enough, I went and got some bigger players, and I had a Junior Morai. I don't know if you know Junior. He coached with Batbusters and Mike Stith. He's a good friend of mine. Him and I go back to our high school days. But his daughter was Brittany Morai, who played at UCLA, and picked her up. And he started recruiting a bunch of kids. And I couldn't believe how serious the recruiting was at 10 and under. It was pretty intense.
Right.
But that was kind of my start in that. And went on, then took the team over. I think Mike left travel ball and continued with his business. And Amber, of course, became a great player at ASU. But yeah, that was kind of my start, man. And it was good. And then we won a few national championships down the road with the Lakewood ladies. So it was cool. That. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I remember, you remember that New York trip?
I do.
Remember that?
I do. Of course I do, man. I remember that's when I first got to really know you.
Yeah.
I think we're talking about 2015-ish, 2016-ish, something like that.
13, I think.
13, okay.
I think it was 13.
I remember that tournament. It was Triple Crown had his first annual Triple Crown tournament out in New York, because I think they were starting a big tournament. They were going to have one in Reno and then one in New York, and I guess it was going to bounce around. So, and you had a good team too, boy. You had that firecracker with the Maha pitcher and a bunch of other really, really good players. So you remember do you want me to remind you what happened?
Sure.
I know you've heard me say this before.
Let me hear it.
So I'll let your fans in on this story. So they have this tournament out in New York, and it was awesome. I mean, it was beautiful, beautiful fields. And the only thing, the weather was always a little shaky.
Right.
The weather was here and there all the time. And sure enough, Randy's team gets to the championship. My team gets to the championship game, 16 and under, right? 16U. And I didn't know Randy that well at that time. I didn't know you. I knew who you were, and I knew who you because I was up coaching in the 18s. And
we were both
I remember
firecrackers.
Yeah, firecrackers. And I remember meeting you. And then, so anyways, we played this championship game, and it had rained before the start of the game. So the grounds crew's out fixing the field and getting it ready. And sure enough, there was going to be a little lapse in rain. So they said, let's get the game in, right? And so we started playing the game, and we had a good kid on the hump, right, pitching. And you had Maha, I think, pitching, or I can't remember who it was. Was it? Am I right on that?
Well, so it was. I actually started Paulson, Ari Paulson.
Yes.
And then Maha came in at the end.
Yeah, so you had a really, really good pitching staff. I mean, it was hard to score on them. So sure enough, it starts sprinkling a little bit, and we're in a dogfight, right? 0-0 tie, I think. 0-0 tie. We're getting into the late part of the game, and we're the home team. And then the umpire comes up to us and says, "Hey, we might have to call this game. This rain's coming down. The sprinkle is coming down a little bit." I said, "Blue, we can't call this game. There's no way we're going to call this game. This is a championship. We're 3,000 miles. Both the teams are 3,000 miles away from home.
Yep.
There's no way we're going to call this game." And, I know we're the home team, right? So anyways, we're playing, and we come up, and I think bottom of the fifth or something, we score. You remember that? We came up.
Remember how you scored?
I think we sent somebody in from third, right? Came in?
No. So what happened is Ari was pitching, and the ball was wet. And I think either there was some base hits or a couple walks that either loaded the base. I think it loaded the bases, if I'm not mistaken. And then so I'm like, I'm going to go we went and got Maha, and Maha comes in and throws 2 or 3 warm-up pitches, and they're over the catcher's head. And of course, she threw a little bit harder than Ari.
Yeah.
And so she ends up walking the winning run in, if I remember right. That's what I remember.
I think so.
And yeah, she walked the winning run in, but it was literally like puddles on the ground, balls wet. Krista Crawford, or Krista Judge back then, was behind I remember she was behind the backstop with the trophy, and like trying to stay, dry. And once we walked that batter in, they called the game. That's what I remember. Do you remember that?
This is what happened. I don't know if you remember this part.
Oh, no.
So the umpires come up, and the umpire at third base comes up to me. And I remember seeing you walking back and forth like you were upset that we scored a run. And then I went up to the umpire and I said, "Hey, Blue, come on, man. This rain is just too much rain here. We got to call this sucker.
Yeah.
It's become a safety issue here.
Yeah.
Let's go, Blue." And sure enough, he looked at me. I didn't think I was going to be able to convince him. Ball game over.
I do. I remember that. And I think Krista, like everybody it was bad. I mean, if you can imagine, it was bad. But that right there,
You're talking about Krista from Triple Crown, yeah?
Yeah. And I'll never forget that because the funny part is I now I've never been in that situation again, but I know next time I'm in that situation, I'm going to go to the umpire and I'm going to say, I am not letting my pitcher throw another pitch. It's a safety hazard. I would have like early on, earlier before it got into that situation. But yeah, that's funny. Who was coaching with you back then?
Well, I had Norbert Flores, whose daughter played, and Tino Hanks. Had a really good coaching staff. And
you still talk to those dudes?
Remember. I remember in the I don't know if you remember this, but Triple Crown gave out really nice trophies that year. The championship trophy was like this big old silver cup, and I think second place was a little trophy like that big. I remember Tino Hanks in the airport carrying his big old trophy, carrying the big trophy, and he saw you with the little one. And of course, he had because I think you guys were good friends, right? At one time, And so he was carrying the big, and goes up to you and says, "Hey, man, where are you going to put that little trophy? I don't know if they're going to let you on the plane with that thing." As he's carrying the huge one up here. That was great. But you're absolutely right, man. That. Coaching, you're always learning, right?
Yeah.
You're always learning.
It's experience. It's experience. Just this it's everything, right? I don't care what you do, but like the experience to know, like, okay, if this happens, I'm going to do this, as opposed to being more reactive. Like you see that stuff coming. I mean, it's just, it's no different than being a parent, right? You see the baby walking by the coffee table and immediately you foresee, them falling, hitting their head, and you're just aware, man. And I'll never forget that though. That was tough. That was tough.
Yeah. I think experience. Go ahead. No, I was saying, experience. I always kind of make a reference to movies, right? Once you see a scary movie, when that bad guy is going to pop out. It's pretty scary the first time, right? He might scare you, catch you off guard, or that shark in Jaws is going to pop out, right?
Oh yeah.
But then once you watch it the second time, third time, fourth, it's not as reactive, right? You kind of know what's going to happen, and you know what's coming next. With experience and softball, man, there's a lot of learning to do for sure.
Yeah. No, that was good stuff. That was probably, I told Krista this. I went up to see them a couple weeks ago, and I was telling Krista that was probably one of my favorite trips. Just in terms of, a guy from Arizona, we've got a couple of buildings here, but like I've never been able to go out of a hotel and look in every direction and not see anything but buildings. Yeah. Really tall buildings. And then I remember you guys, and Tino and Norbert walking around. One of them was like, "Hey, forget about it." That's all he kept saying every time you see him, "Forget about it."
Yeah, he picked up that New York Italian accent. Yeah. They were good coaches, man. Good. And you gotta, and this too. You gotta have good people under your belt, and I know you have Eli, right? Kind of, and good coaches. You gotta have them. You gotta have good people around you, and I was blessed to have them. Then I had another guy who coached with me on the 18s, Bill West. Man, he was incredible. Jiminy Christmas, he was good, dedicated. Showed up on time and early, and was all in, right? And you got to have those people around, and you can have success without them.
Yeah, it's tough. And then you go from travel ball, and then you start doing, then you start getting into college. Tell me how that came about, and what got you into coaching the college game at Fullerton? How'd that come about?
Yeah, well, it's interesting you say that. I mean, I'm probably one of the few coaches out there, to be honest with you, that that has coached, 4 and under, 6 and under, right, with my daughters, and then into the travel ball world and into 18s, right, and then international. I got a couple of professional job offers. I haven't taken one yet, but a couple of those coming, around the corner maybe. But college was kind of just happened. I wasn't planning on it. I wasn't planning to do it. People would ask me, hey, why don't you coach college, or would you want to coach college? Could you coach college? And in my mind, I was like, yeah, totally. I can coach at the college level. You know what I mean? I could coach there for sure. And then once I got into it, I was like, whoa, this is a little different. It's a little different.
Like, what's different?
There's just a lot of, well, let's start off the field first, right? So about 3/4 of college softball is stuff that you're doing off the field, administratively. We have a director of ops now at Fullerton, but when I first started, we didn't. So, you got to think about constant travel, constant hotels, airlines, meals for the players. You're dealing with so many administrative things, compliance, right? Athletic meetings, committee meetings. If you're in one, there's just a lot of nuances that don't even have to do with actually playing a game, that can turn a lot of people off, right? It actually did. It kind of turned me off. I'm not an administrative type person, and constantly be doing and being in an office day in and day out. That's always been hard for me. The easy part for me is the field, for sure, just like most of us coaches. But we got a director of ops at Fullerton that took over those responsibilities, and it made life a lot easier, right? So that's one thing that I didn't see coming, was the day in and day out of the managing off the field of a softball team, at that level, and that extreme, right? When you're talking about, $1 million budgets, right? Or, hundreds of thousands of dollar budgets, you have to manage all that scheduling. And it's just, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. The softball part is pretty similar, right? You're just dealing with better athletes, but you are dealing with women. You're dealing with 23-year-old, 22-year-old women, and that's a whole different leadership style that you have to have, right? It's not like, we get a lot of, I remember we brought in a kid who transferred in out of Washington to Fullerton when I got there, Missy Araujo. And after about 2 weeks of being on, she played travel ball for me all the way from 10 and under all the way through 18s. And she played for Tony Rico too for a bit at the end there. But I remember her telling me, Coach George, you got soft. You're soft, man. I remember you doing this and cussing out us like this, and just getting after us day at practice all the time. And now at the college level, you've gotten a little soft, But I don't think she understood that it's different, right? You're with them every day, for hours, not only on the field but off the field with the travel. And that would get really, really old if I were to bark at them like I did back in the travel. When you're really in travel ball, we see them Saturday and Sunday, sometimes a little longer, nationals, right? Those big tournaments, but you're only seeing them a few days a week. And at the college level, you're seeing them every single day, right? And you're on them for everything. I mean, you're just not on them about softball. You're on them about not showing up to class, about showing up on time to class, about, homework, or how's, you're on them for so many different things that it would get really old to coach a college player, collegiate level player, like you do a travel ball player. Right. And it's a different time of their development too. Usually when you bring them into college, they already know a lot of the stuff, right, that you're teaching them down in the travel ball world. But it's a different style of coaching, different style of coaching that you do at the college level. But I'll tell you what, it happens happens at your level. Happens in the 10 and unders, the 12s, the 14s, the 16s, and even the 18s, right? You guys are the ones that prepare them when they come to us. You guys are the roots, you guys. And sometimes us college coaches, and a lot of college coaches that I talk to, they don't see that, right? They don't see what you guys do, man, because they haven't been there. So they don't know the stuff that you as a travel ball coach are navigating through, right? Dealing not only with the athletes, but you're dealing a lot with the parents, as well, right? And you're dealing about with what's happening now with kids. They find it really easy to, not want to work and just, I'll go on another team where I'm going to start, right? I'll start on that team. And So they'll jump, right? Because they're being pushed by, maybe they want to be the shortstop, and there's someone at that shortstop spot that's better than you right now, and they don't see it, and then they take off. And I mean, we see that too, right? We have the portal now at the college level, and that's impacted our game a lot. And I mean, kids leave for many, many reasons. And sometimes they do. They'll leave because they got beat out by somebody, or they don't want to work for it, or, you see that. But like I said, man, travel ball world, that's what you guys do down there. That's the bread and butter, right? That's the bread and butter.
Yeah.
And I know you do a great job. We had, Racy Miranda came to us, and she was ready to go, right? She was ready to from the mental side of things, right? She understood, how to work. And that's awesome when we get kids like that. And that, again, that comes from the travel ball coach and from you and what you guys do.
I appreciate that. Like we try really hard, and I'm, again, like you said, I'm fortunate to have a lot of good people around me. I know, Victor, her pitching coach, does a lot with her as well. And then to me, it's really too about the support system that they have in place. The players that, in my opinion, that go off and do well and represent us well are the players who have the support system that they also help us hold them accountable. And so, it's not, hey, he has his favorites, or, hey, they only play so-and-so, or whatever it may be. I mean, at the end of the day, like you said, we're trying to get them ready. And I struggle a little bit with how much are we getting them ready, or if we're doing enough, or are we doing too much? There's a fine balance. And obviously everybody's a little bit different. One of the things that we talk about, especially at 12 and 13-year-olds, is we got to make them tough, and we got to make them understand how to work hard. We have Todd Mabry, who does a great job for us at the younger ages, or has done a great job. And, we're trying to instill that in a lot of our younger coaches and teams. But one of the things I get from, another coach that I know pretty well is he always tells me, he's like, the one thing I want you to do, the one reason I like kids playing for you, or I like getting kids from you guys, is because you guys practice, and you guys practice hard, and your practices are long, and you're going to put them through a 3-hour workout and then a 7-inning scrimmage or a doubleheader. And he said the biggest thing that he has with college coaches right now or with college players, is some of them come in and they don't know how to practice, because, I mean, I can't remember. I was in a seminar once, and they were saying that travel ball plays 5 games for every one practice, and college softball is like 15 games to or 15 practices to every one game, something like that. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a fine line.
Yeah, I think I used to think that when they put the new recruiting rules in place that was going to change, right? I used to always say, well, they're not practicing because they're going out showcasing all the time, and they want to just showcase and play. But that's not the case, right? The world changed, and it's still that way. We always learn things from other people, and some coaches, I feel, that don't like to practice because they don't know how to practice, right? They don't know how to run a practice or establish a system for practice. So it's much easier to go play a game, and go off that. But yeah, practice is huge, man. Practice is where the kids develop, and they get the skill set, and they get fine tuned, right? And yes, you can play, and I know you have your showcase that you have to go to, but practice is king. And I think teaching coaches how to practice or run a practice and a system for practice is something that's missing, and we can figure out how to, teach coach how to run practices at a young level. That would be beneficial for sure at the collegiate level, right?
Yeah. What I have a player right now that is basically told me that, like, I want to go to college, and I want to do and follow a path to where I could be a D1 college coach someday. Like, what kind of advice would you give that player specifically? If, like, what
she
classes?
Want to be a coach?
Wants to be a coach. Like, that's it. Like, and I've talked to the family, and dad's like, I don't care about, like, financial, like, what, granted, you can go do something to make more money. I want her to be happy, and I want her to feel like she's making a difference. And if that's her path, they're 100% supportive of that. But like, what would you say? What would you tell somebody? What advice would you give them?
Well, first of all, I would say, like her dad probably said is, follow your dream. If that's what you want to do, go for it. But just be aware of the things that are involved, right? Being a collegiate coach. There's difference between travel ball coach, high school coach, collegiate coach, international coach. That's all different stuff that goes on behind the scenes. Learn the behind the scenes stuff, right?
Yeah.
Get on as a grad student, maybe if you want to do some grad work, go and be a director of ops, right? Or be that grad student that does the office stuff. Learn about compliant, learn compliant information, what information you have to bring in, what do you need behind the scenes, right? How do you operate hotels? What are budgets? What's a traveling budget? What's a recruiting budget? How's that managed, right? How's a supplies budget? You're running a big company, right? When you're running a college team, you're basically running, you have 30, 35, 40 people beneath you that you're responsible for, right? And so learn all the nuances of managing a business, because that's what it is. It's managing a business, and it's a great profession. The money's going up for sure. It's getting better as time goes on. You see the fan base that we have in college softball, so the money keeps increasing. But don't make it about the money. If that will come, if it comes, but don't make it about that. That will take care of itself. But learn the nuances behind the scenes, because that's the biggest turnoff, right? For a lot of players. Another part that a lot of college coaches don't like to do is recruit. They don't like recruiting. When you're a travel ball coach, you would think that, well, that is the funnest thing in the world, right? Being out there recruiting and just watching games. But there's a lot of coaches that don't enjoy that end of it, right? You're talking long hours from, 7 in the morning for an 8 a.m. game all the way to 11 at night for, until that 9 p.m. game finishes, right? And you're doing it for 6, 7, 8 days. So how much, are you willing to do that, right? Spend weekends out in the field watching and evaluating talent. And that's a part that, a lot of coaches don't enjoy doing too much. I love doing that. I enjoy it. But all of us have our things that we like to do, that we do well and we really enjoy. It's no job's ever perfect. But college coaching is pretty close to it. We have a director of ops that can do a lot of my work now. So that's fun. But man, it's a great profession. Go for it if that's what you want to do. Try it out.
Cool.
Get that master's degree if you can. Get that master's degree, because that's going to come into play as you move down the road.
Cool. Do you not to change the subject now, but do you watch any college games? Are you keeping up with what's going on college wise?
You know what?
Like
I do. I'm not gonna lie. After we took that hit against Stanford, I was like, man, I'm not watching the softball game for a while, right? Because you get, we're passionate about what we do, and it hurts, right? It kind of hurts you a little bit. I don't know. That's just the way I am. Some coaches are like, they go right into watching, and me, it's kind of like, I don't know. I don't know. It just hurts me a little bit. So I didn't want to get into watching, and yesterday I watched a little bit, but I've been so caught up, that's something you have to do in coaching too. You got to be able to switch hats really quick, right? From the office to the field to a counselor to a psychologist to, academic advising. You're all constantly changing hats. So I've kind of changed hats. I'm kind of in recruiting mode, right? Kind of organizing my recruiting stuff and getting ready and preparing to what we have to do. And then also getting ready the Team Mexico is going to go play in the Canada Cup. So kind of organizing things for that and talking to players that are going to play on the Mexican team and make sure everything's going good with them. We have a few that are in the World Series right now. We have a kid out of Texas, playing for Texas. Gutierrez, pitcher, Alina Torres, Oklahoma. And, we have a bunch of kids that are in the World Series. So, I'm not bugging them yet, but I'll wait until they finish, but making phone calls. So just changing hats on that. So I'm getting ready to start watching these last few games.
should be some pretty good games. What, since you brought up recruiting, let's jump into that.
Yeah.
Everybody has, that's the golden ticket, right? We're trying to get recruited as kids or as families, and parents are trying to put their kids in the right positions. What like what's your take on recruiting? What if you had a daughter right now, what would you do differently if she was in that, freshman year, going into freshman year? Like what do you think? What's your opinion on that?
As a father or as a coach?
As a father. Let's talk about it as a father.
Okay, from a father's perspective. Well, I might ramble on here a little bit because I have
ramble, man. You're good.
A lot of feelings about that, and I guess in full transparency. Yeah, yeah, and full transparency here. I'm going to I'll tell you another little thing. So a couple years ago, I have a 28-year daughter. She played with me on the Lakewood Ladies, and she's the one that I got started with softball. We're sitting at Thanksgiving dinner, and we're just talking about softball. I have two daughters. One's a senior in college now, and then this daughter that graduated a few years ago. And we're sitting.
Don't you have twins?
And I have twins, 19-year-old twins. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that are okay. They're still at home with me and stuff. But so my oldest daughter says to me, and we're talking, somehow softball got in the conversation like it always does. And she says to me, Dad, you weren't the greatest dad at that time. I said, what time? And she's, when you were coaching me, because I was, her coach, so it was a little different. She said, you were always coaching. You were never, during that time, you weren't my dad. Like, you were just always coaching me about something, about why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? I said, what are you talking about? And it was a shock. And this is like years later after I haven't coached her in over, 10 years. And I never really knew this, which was, and she came out and she started crying at the Thanksgiving table. And, I did too. I got emotional. I said, then she started just venting and telling me a lot of the things that I did bad, right, on the drive home. And I know your travel ball kids and your travel ball parents, they hear it all the time from you, right, about the conversations. But I never realized it was me. No. I never knew it was. I always thought I was the guy giving all the good advice, right, and telling dads how to treat their daughters. But here I am, doing the opposite, right, constantly talking to her about whatever it might be, constantly talking about, I remember the recruiting talks, and I remember it was just always about softball, and I never clicked off. I never clicked off. And I think if I were to do something different and I would give an advice to some of the parents that are out there, or your parents, is click off, man. Like, enjoy the ride for what it is, and just watch your daughters, enjoy them. Let your coaches coach, right? Let the coaches coach and let the daughters play, and you just, focus on what your assignment is, and that being a good father, right? And that goes for mothers too. But I felt it in my heart when my daughter told me that, man. It broke my heart that I was that guy, right? It's tough, but let your daughters play and enjoy it. And if you have a hard time with it, just sit down in that outfield and just watch. You'll get over it. These years are going to go by fast, right? Like that old saying says that the years go by fast. It's in the blink of an eye. What do they say? The days are long, but the years are fast, right? So, and that's going to happen. You'll look back her sophomore year in college and you can say, wow, I can't believe I was worried about that. I even talked to my daughter or critiqued her about that, and it just go too fast. So that's my advice, man. Click off.
It's funny you say that. It's funny you say that because I know I was that guy with my first one. I remember pulling up to, there's a local store here called Cleats Sports. And I remember pulling up to Cleats, and I was yelling at my daughter the whole way home, and I told her to get out and go in the store and see if she can buy some hits. And when she got out to go get in, dude, I was like, damn.
Yeah.
Like, that was not cool. But with my second one, I felt like I did a way better job.
Yeah.
So you learn, and that's good for everybody to hear, because we always talk about it, but like, in the moment, I don't think people realize what they're doing or saying is having that big of an effect. What about as a college coach? What are some of the do's and don'ts for you as a Division I coach at Cal State Fullerton?
For parents?
Yeah, for parents and players, just some basic recruiting stuff. Like, what do you got?
Man, okay, that's an easy one for me. Okay, that's an easy one for me, and this is I just said, let the coaches coach, right?
Yep.
But at the same time, the travel ball coach's probably hardest job is to be honest with parents, right? And you might know this, but be honest with the parents, right? If your kid is not at the level of the school that they are looking at, right? If they want to play at a Power 5 school, but she does not have the skill set for a Power 5, then the travel ball coach's responsibility is to be honest with that kid and the parent and let them know, look, you don't run fast enough to be a slapper in that division, right? Or you don't throw hard enough, or you don't have that range that an elite level shortstop has for a Power 5. You can have it, and I'm not saying you can't continue to work at it, but this is reality right now, and let's look at these schools, right? Let's maybe not look at those other schools, but let's take a look at this school, and this school, or this conference, and let's spend our energy there, right? Let's not spend our energy and money going to this particular school when you're not going to play there. And if you do go there, maybe as a walk-on or something, that's all you're going to be. Are you okay with that? But being truthful, and accepting that as a parent, like my travel coach just hurt my feelings, and he maybe hurt my daughter's feelings, but I know he's telling me the right thing. Right. And that's where a lot of trust comes in. And that's where you come in, Randy, because I know you do a good job of that, is being honest with people and just letting them know, hey, look, that's not a school for you. Right. And again, it'll hurt for a little bit. It'll sting. But then you could jump on the right path and start exploring other things that you might want to explore. Now, that doesn't mean if that's your dream school and that's where you want to go, and more power to you. Right. But I'm being honest with you. And this is what I see from all the years that I've been doing this. Rely on your travel ball coach if they're trustworthy and they've proven they're trustworthy, that they are trustworthy, because trust is earned. Yeah. So for sure, but if they've shown that and they've demonstrated that, then trust it, trust the process, that they know what they're doing. And, again, I've known you for years and I know that's what you do. So, and then travel ball coaches, man, be honest with the college coaches too. Right. Don't come, this happens often too, right? We have a travel ball coach will tell us something about a kid that, she does this, she does that, and we go out and watch. It's complete opposite. She runs certain speed, and like they don't know that we're going to clock them eventually, right? We're going to watch them run, right. We're going to watch them hit and pitch, but somehow they feel they can get us out there to watch and they might get us out there once or twice, but then credibility shot out the window too, right? There's no more credibility, and then we can't trust anybody. But, and there's only a handful of coaches that I feel this way about, and it's a small group, right? And you're one of them. Randy, you call me and I'll go out and watch a kid. I have to. It doesn't mean I'm going to pick them up or I'm going to, they're going to be fit for Fullerton, but I'm definitely going to go watch, right? Because of the trust factor that we have. Yeah. And there's only a few like that. So it's a hard world.
Yeah, I think that's one of the toughest pieces. Is it's easy and it's tough is being honest, because not everybody wants to hear that. But I think once you do it long enough, I feel like it gets a little easier to have those conversations, because at the end of the day, that's the right conversation, and that is what's right for the kid and the family, and usually that works out, to be the case.
Well, it's security too, right? You feel secure with what you do, and you can say that, right? Sometimes it's coaches that maybe don't have a lot of experience, or they're afraid to lose a player. They're not secure yet in that world, that they might have a little harder time, telling a kid the truth. And unfortunately, it will hurt everybody in the long run, right?
Yeah. How about attitudes with families or players, or how much do you look into that stuff? Or, you always hear the story of, coaches, her parent yelling or this or that, and they crossed them off the list. How true is that for you?
It's very true. It's very true. And it's definitely very true. That's, the parents are an extension of our family, right? They're definitely an extension of our family, and we have to It has to be part of the decision-making process. It's not a deal breaker by any means, but it has to be addressed, and we have to be careful about it, and can it be managed, right? But it's definitely something we look at. And, it happened, and I'll share this, but, I was surprised there was a certain player on the portal the day before yesterday when I was on there, and I made a phone call to the coach, and they told me exactly what you just said, right? George, we just couldn't deal with at this level, right? The collegiate level. So imagine what goes on in the travel ball world. But at the collegiate level, it's like they just didn't want to deal with it, and they're like, you're gone, and sorry. They said the kid was a good kid, but this parent was just, over the top, man. And you can't deal with that, right? They destroy things those type of parents destroy programs. They destroy coaches. Right? I mean, who wants to deal with a parent like that? It's just tough. So we have to take a look at that, and we have to take that into account, and doesn't mean we're not going to take a kid if they're, it's Division I softball. We're trying to win ball games, and we'll manage it if we can. But if it's over the top and it's just, I've had travel ball coaches tell me that too. Hey, kid's a great kid, but mom and dad are, I just want to warn you. It's up to you.
Yeah.
I just want to warn you. And once I hear that, man, I tend to really brush off a little bit, especially at our institution, because we've created a good culture and a good place, and to bring somebody in to do that, right? And it's tough, and we want accountable kids and accountable parents. And that's the hardest thing. I know earlier you mentioned a little bit about, how you bringing up your players and stuff, but that's a big thing that's missing is making players accountable. Right? Yeah, you want them tough, you want them gritty, you want them to learn how to practice, you want to do that. But man, can kids be accountable? Right? Yeah. Can you understand?
You got to call it out. You got to call it out right away.
Call it out, and then being able to accept it. Right? Being able to accept it. Right? And unfortunately, when we don't make our own kids and our own players accountable, when they get to the college level, it's tough. They don't see it. Right? They don't see that the kid's in the lineup because she's hitting 360, you're hitting 220. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, who would you play? Right?
Yeah,
and they're like, well, I didn't get enough opportunities. Well, you did. Everybody gets the same amount of opportunities in the fall, right? Or we always give fair opportunities, but sometimes these kids that aren't accountable, or that mom and dad don't, okay, well, you're not starting, let's go, right? Let's go to a different team or whatever,
Right.
That's one thing that we're seeing, that I'm seeing at the college level, is kids that just have a hard time being accountable, for the way things are, right? That you got beat out, or that this kid's doing better or something. Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things I don't think the families and the players realize, or they may think they know, but you coaches talk like amongst each other, and you have relationships that are really good behind the scenes. And you're going to get the real on whoever it is, whether it's a travel ball kid or family or a kid that's already in college. It's going to get exposed if it's there. You told us a story a long time ago about culture and about being a team, and you use the term donkeys. Tell me about that.
That's a good one. Well, I was fortunate enough to play for a man, John Scalinas at Cal Poly, legendary coach, one of the greatest men and mentors that I ever had, and changed my life, during that stage of my life, right, in my early 20s, my college years, I guess. But he was just amazing man, and he was always coaching, teaching, constant teacher. Just always teaching you something. It could be something. I remember one time walking in the hallway, and he asked me, hey, I used to call me Arriba. So because Arriba, how you doing today? And I said something like, hey, I'm hanging in there, coach. And he literally stopped right in the hallway by his office. He says, hanging in there? He says, what are you talking about? And he says, and I say, yeah, just hanging in there, And he says, well, let me tell you something. He goes, you're Mexican, right? And I said, yeah. He goes, well, you know what a piñata is? And I said, yeah. He goes, well, what does a piñata do? And I said, and I didn't get where he was going, right? And he says, well, let me tell you, a piñata hangs around. And you know what happens to a piñata They get smacked around. So he says, you never hang around. You're always digging in and doing something, right? Always have a purpose. So he was that kind of guy, right? He's just always
Love that.
giving you stuff. So one day I go to a game. I don't remember if it was an alumni game or watch his game. And me and a buddy that we played there, this is after we graduated, years after, and I was already coaching. And so I asked him a question about recruiting. And I literally asked him why he recruited me, like, why did you recruit me and my other roommate, who was my roommate, Dave, and why he recruited us, right? And he kind of just gave us a little spiel about what kind of kids to recruit. And so he said, and he was always putting things in categories. Everything he did was a category, there's 3 of these, there's 3 kinds of people, there's, that's how he used to talk. So he brought up, he says, look, when you recruit, he says, you recruit 3 types of people. He says the first type is an athlete. He says you got to have athletes. You got to get these kids that can play and do special things, right? And make special plays. Those kids are going to win some games for you. He said, but the problem with the athlete is that you never know when the athlete's going to show up. Sometimes they show up, sometimes they don't show up. You don't know when they're going to make that great play. You just never know. And so that can be a problem for you. And he says, but you got to have them. And then he said, you got to get the competitors, right? The competitive kids will compete. And, man, you got to have those competitive kids. You got to have those kids that love to compete. But he said the problem with the competitor is that the competitor, when things aren't going good and not going their way, they tend to forget about everybody else, right? They're so competitive that when things aren't going good, when they're striking out or not pitching well or not doing things well, they're in a bad time of the season, whatever it might be, they forget about everybody. Everything becomes about them, right? They're the kids that walk in, throw their bat, throw their helmet, are pissed off. They won't talk to anybody. They're just so upset because of of not doing well due to their competitiveness that, but you got to have them. He goes, you got to have kids that love to compete, right? And then he says the third one is the winner. Right. He says, you got to have winners, find winners wherever you can. And this is something that stuck with me, Randy, for forever, and I look into this during my recruiting process when I'm out recruiting. He says, find the winners. And he says, the winners are the athletes and the people that will do anything for your team to win. And it could be anything. Okay. It might be on the field, but not necessarily. It could be a scorekeeper. It could be a bat girl. It could be anybody that's picking signs, anybody that's contributing to the team to win, and they will do that, and they will win. They will pick up that competitor, lift her spirits up. They will get after that athlete and says, hey, do this. They will make everybody on your team better. And they don't necessarily have to be an athlete. It could be a manager. But he said, you find the winner, and you pick up that winner as soon as you can, because that's the winner that's going to help you win some games. So I said, well, that's interesting, And then he says, and then this is what I think you were alluding to. He says, oh, and by the way, there's a fourth one. He says, the fourth one is the donkey. He says, you see donkeys, just remember, they're never going to race in that Kentucky Derby for you. You get rid of the donkey right away. Those are what we call teen cancers, right? Kids that are not bought into what your system or your program. Kids that aren't doing the things that they're supposed to be doing. They're just bad teammates in general. He says, get rid of the donkeys, because you know what happens? If you don't get rid of the donkey, eventually you end up in Donkeyville. And that's a story I learned from him. So, wow. And at the end of that, I asked him, well, shit, okay, well, who are we?
What was I? Exactly. That's what I was wondering.
I was feeling good about the other 3 a little bit, But then when he brought that one up, I was like, whoa, okay, maybe I was. And he just said, you guys figure that out. You figure out where you fall into. That was his closing.
That's funny.
You fall in where you fall into. So get rid of the donkeys, man.
Yeah.
It's funny you remember that.
No, I've remembered that for many years. And when it kind of came back up for me is, let's just say in the last 12 months, I was in Donkeyville. I was leave it at that, but, you don't realize it, but you're there and you're like, wow, this is, must have made a wrong turn. But
yeah, no, and I'll tell you what, Randy, at the college level, it's like that too, right? Sometimes we just got to get rid of the donkey, man, and you can't, because they destroy everything, right? They destroy everything that you're trying to build, and it's hard, especially when they're great players. You know, that's hard. That's when you get tested. Okay, you got a 350, 360 hitter kid that can play a little bit, and okay, but she's this, she's that, and disruptive to the team. You got to make the call, right? And I think, like you said earlier, through experience, you learn that you have to make it.
Yeah, and you get better at it, and you get better at identifying it. And I've gotten to the point now where I categorize everyone too by former players. You know, hey, that's kind of a Danny Nelson right there, or that kid reminds me of Maha, or whomever, McCarty, or the Smith twins, or I mean, freaking name it. Like, but like those, you get better at it. So I'm not donkey proof yet, but I'm closer than I was a year ago.
Well, it's hard, man. It's hard.
Because you want to see the best in everybody, and you want to see the best in kids and families, and you hope for the best, and you see the talent, and you know it's in there, and you think you can make a difference, but
we're teachers by nature, right? And we're educators by coaches. That's what we do, is teach. And as teachers, we always want to give everybody the benefit of the doubt, and we always feel we can rescue, right? We always feel we can rescue, and sometimes we just can't, man. And it's hard. It's hard,
for sure. Recruiting events, where are you going this summer?
The usuals, man. Colorado and the Zoom into Junes and all that stuff that goes on. Just the usual places, Huntington Beach and Colorado and Rosetta, right? Those events out there, and just kind of the usual stuff. Definitely recruiting has changed a little bit for us. The portal's big, right? So that's a little different. That's changed some dynamics for a lot of people. But we'll be at the usuals, whatever place you invite me to, to see your top kids. So I'll be there for sure.
Yeah, I threw it out there already. We'll be having our annual Zoom camp. It's always a little bit of a gamble that time of year, and we'll roll it out there and get it going. Kick off the first day of recruiting, hopefully, and make it roll. Yeah,
well, make sure you give me all that info, because I know probably a lot of coaches will be out there for that one, right?
For sure, I definitely will. I spent the day yesterday sending a bunch of stuff out and got lots of responses from the usual people that we talk to, and I'll be honest, like that's one of the best times of the year for me. I love it. Love seeing all my friends. Love seeing all the people that we have relationships with, and just competing a little bit with the girls and with the other coaches, and it doesn't suck, man. I love what I do.
I've driven all the way to Arizona for your players, man. So I remember going to a restaurant one time for one of them. You called me and said, "Hey, she's getting close to making a decision." I'm going out there, and I remember making a 5-hour drive and sat down with her family at a restaurant, and then drove right back 10 hours. I think we sat at the dinner or the lunch table for like 45 minutes and drove back. So I know when you call me, it's like I'm there. I have to be there.
Appreciate that.
Don't forget about the next one.
No, I got a couple in mind, man. I'll shoot you some info. But yeah, there'll be some. You got anything else, man? Before we wrap up, any final thoughts out there on the game, on coaching, on anything you got?
I guess I just want to thank you, for having me on here. But I know that through the years, right, longevity. Longevity is the name of the game, and to be around as long as you've been around, it doesn't happen easy. Right. There's a lot of guys that come in a couple seasons or go through with their daughters. Right. And then once their daughters are done, they're out. But you've been in it for the long haul, man. And that's my respects to you and what you do, and the kids that you're developing, not only on the field, right, but off the field too. I know the kids I know one that played for me, and she holds you in the highest regards, right? And that's where we get a lot of the feedback too, right? Well, my travel ball coach is like this, or Randy was like this, and constantly bringing you up. Well, he used to do things this way. That's how I know that you did a good job, and you're doing a good job with what you're doing. So I just want to wish you the best of luck this summer, and get after it like you always do, and make those tough decisions that you have to make, man, because that makes it fun sometimes too.
Dude, we got a talent. I got some really good problems this summer. We got a talented roster, and I'm excited about it. I'm excited to just get out there and get back at it. And I'm looking forward to seeing you, man. I appreciate it.
Sweet. You got it. This was a joy.
Yeah, it was fun.
Time went by fast. I can't believe it's that time already.
Dude, it goes by quick. I'm going to do a quick outro and we'll be done here. All right, I just want to say thanks for listening. Like I said earlier, we did our first live feed. We'll learn what we got to do better. But we'll continue working to elevate the sport and get caught up with those who are influential in the fast pitch community. And hopefully we can help you navigate your softball journey. If you enjoy this content, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Caught Up with Randy Kaye, or at Coach KAZ. You can listen on Spotify, Caught Up with Randy Kaye. You can also follow us on X and on Instagram using the same handles, at Coach KAYEAZ. Thanks again for listening. Appreciate everybody.